This workshop is a part of a series called Collegetown CLASSes. CLASS is an acronym, the Civic Leadership Alumni Skillshare. So these are designed to connect members of our alumni community as well as friends of our organization to create a sense of unity as we all navigate these COVID waters that have just been churning for months and months and months now. And it's also a unique way to highlight the special skills that all of our alumni have. So without further ado, I am excited to pass the Zoom mic over to Jasir for today's class.
Thanks, Morgan. Hey, thanks for coming to my class. So today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to share it on the screen, building connections to writing and mentorship, which are two things that are super important to me and things that have definitely shaped my life, not only professionally, but personally as well. These are things that really guide me throughout everything that I'm doing. So really what I'm going to do in this presentation is kind of like take you all step by step through different writing and mentorship experiences I've had, as well as different things that I've learned through doing those writing and mentorship activities. So definitely, if you have any questions about anything during any time, definitely drop it in the chat. I love talking about this, so it'd be cool. All right, so this is just a little about me. This is me from graduation. So I graduated from UMBC in 2018, majored in media and communication studies and minored in writing. So that's kind of like, the writing part is coming in early. But writing is definitely something that I've loved since, being a young child. Like I really always love expressing myself that way. And then like the Collegetown connection. So I've done a lot of stuff in Collegetown. Collegetown is really cool. So I was in LeaderSHAPE Class 6. I was a mentor for Collegetown Underground, on-site coordinator for Leadership Class 7. So a lot of that was just kind of like helping out, doing whatever needed to be done for the next class. Collegetown Underground was a really cool thing too. I was part of the first one, so it was kind of like a lot of like alternative spring break programs. It's like the same type of idea. So a lot of us from different schools, we came together and we were staying at a church on First and Franklin, and we were doing different activities in the city. And it was focused primarily on West Baltimore, and I'm from Baltimore, so it's definitely a really good connection. And the last note is just that I'm a member of the Collegetown Alumni Board, which is, kind of geared towards making sure that people stay connected after these, activities like LeaderSHAPE and Underground happen. So it's really cool to be together in those moments and for that week or a few days that Underground is, but just to kind of keep that going after that, because as this talk kind of talks about or kind of mentions in the title, like connection is a really big and important thing to me, and like staying connected authentically throughout time is a really cool thing. So why writing and mentorship? Kind of mentioned this before, but they're my two biggest passions, and they're also like very accessible. So nobody really has no one can tell you that you can't write or you can't mentor. Like these things are kind of like innately within all of us, I think. So that's why I like them. You don't really have to be an expert. You don't go to school for mentorship or whatever. You can go to school for writing, but it's very accessible. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody can kind of pick up a pen and start writing their experiences. Anybody can look after somebody, younger themselves or more inexperienced themselves and kind of help them along. So I think they're like a really, really big part of like our humanity, really just kind of like connecting with other people. It's really cool. Second point is just like allowing for a deeper connection. So a lot of times in life, like I feel like we're just kind of connecting with each other on the surface level. We talk about how's work, it's cool, and that's the type of conversation that happens. But with writing and mentorship, you have to think, right? You have to think more deeply about things. With writing, you have to kind of process your own feelings and be able to put them down and put them out to other people. And with mentorship as well, to be able to be an effective mentor, you have to connect with people on a way better or way deeper level than the day-to-day level that we usually connect with people. And then this last point, just they have a great impact on the people around you and on people beyond your physical reach as well. So that's one of my favorite things about writing, is that I can write something now and somebody like all the way across the world can read it and know exactly how I'm feeling. And if they relate, they can know, okay, there's somebody in the world, even if they're not necessarily, in the room or whatever, that feels exactly how I feel, which is really cool. And the same thing with mentorship. I want to get into an example later on. A lot of the mentorship that I've done has been, face-to-face, but this summer I had an experience where I had to mentor, some young people, and we obviously couldn't be together because of coronavirus. So it still worked, which is cool. Like we have all these people in Baltimore City, all these young people who I'm connected to now, who I've never met in person, which is really good. But the connection is still the same, and we've still shared some experiences, which is really nice. So this section is about writing. So pretty much, like I said before, I'm going to just take you through different things I wrote, and then different things I learned when I was writing those things. So this first thing, this is a screenshot, super old picture of me. This is like freshman year. But about the Imagining America conference that I went to with a lot of other UMBC students. So this is a really cool conference because it focuses on like civic engagement. And before I really participated in it, I didn't really like have that term in mind. Like I knew that type of stuff was what I was interested in, but to have a name for it, civic engagement, really helped me out. So this was written after Freddie Gray was killed, and that was definitely like for a lot of people obviously, but like just being a young Black man from Baltimore, and then being at UMBC where there weren't a lot of people like me there, and experiencing that, it definitely impacted me in a really great way. And through this blog, I was kind of able to express how I was feeling, because pretty much I was feeling like it was weird. I was at UMBC, which is not too far from Baltimore, but I was still kind of removed from it. And we were so removed from it that people really didn't see people at UMBC. Some people didn't necessarily see, the systemic racism that was involved in that and things like that, things that I had known from growing up. So this kind of allowed me to express, the need for empathy for people, because I'd heard like a lot of just nonsense. Like people were just saying like all types of just foul things about Baltimore and Freddie Gray and this. And they were saying that because they didn't necessarily see those people as people, and they didn't necessarily see people as from Baltimore as people who were even able to go to UMBC. I'm looking at them like I go here and I'm from there, so what are you really talking about? But this blog was really cool because it allowed me like a platform, I guess, to be able to express those opinions. And it was kind of like a controversial opinion because it was kind of calling people out or in, or however you want to put it, about lacking empathy and not being able to connect with people who are people at the end of the day. So writing this was my introduction to making my thoughts public, which is really cool. So David Hoffman, Romy Hubler, like Brenda Byrne, Corinne Jenner, people like that in student life definitely helped out a lot. Especially David Hoffman, who edited these pieces. But this is like the spark, I think, for me, because I always liked writing, but I never put my thoughts out in that way. Like I just had this type of conversation with people I knew, and this kind of like blew it up, because then after I wrote this, people would come up to me and be like, "Oh, I read the thing you wrote. Like I've been feeling the same way." And it's like, wow, like I never would have known that unless I took the step to actually go out and write it. So this is really cool. This is definitely like when I think of like my turning point or like my launch point for writing, this is definitely it. This first one. So came back next year, did it again. So this is 2016. So there was a lot of like outrage around protests, different protests, surrounding injustices. So I think, the first piece that I wrote definitely gave me the confidence and everything like that to even, write something like this, So after I saw that the first one was received well, I was like, okay, let's write another one, because this is like, it was a similar topic about criticizing the injustice that leads to these protests. But it was a little bit different, and it allowed me to kind of go into more detail and everything like that. And for the links to these things, like I can send you all the links, because I know we have just like the snippets or whatever. But even just seeing like the growth, like for myself, I saw that like, okay, through doing these things, I was growing as a writer. That was really cool. And then this is the last one. So we went to, I think it was my senior year, we went to the National Campus Leaders Summit, which was held at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, which is kind of like just a place to gather to bring people who are college students around the country who are leaders on their campuses to the museum to kind of look at, to kind of talk. And you talk about the leadership that we participate in and just share strategies and things like that. And also tour the museum, which is a really powerful experience. Definitely recommend going after everything is all cleared up, because it definitely contextualizes things that are happening in our world now in a different way. So this was like the final thing where that I wrote for UMBC. This is, I think it was definitely the best one I wrote. So like I was saying before, I was looking through them and I was like, my writing got better and things like that. But it was pretty much about, not being complicit in people's oppression, which is, I feel like, it takes some type of step to want to bring that point up to a broader audience, because you don't really know how that's going to be perceived. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're having this conversation, you think of that like I'm a student at UMBC, and I'm telling people at UMBC, by being silent about what happened to Freddie Gray and what happened with Colin Kaepernick, what happened all these times, you're complicit in oppressing people. But that's a pretty controversial message. But by the time I got to my senior year, I was in it, because of the first post that I did. It's kind of building the confidence, and then I was doing other activities as well. So by the time I got there, I was just like, here we are. This is who I am. This is what I do. So yeah, last point. Again, I felt like my writing improved through repetition. So repetition is a really good way to get better at writing. Just keep on doing it. You're bound to get better by doing that. And then also having somebody edit it. So David Hoffman I talked about before, just having him ask questions about things, or being like, oh, can you explain this more? Like, I know what you're talking about, but make sure that people understand what you're saying. So that was a really good experience. Okay, so also at UMBC, I was a tutor at the Writing Center. So this job was really cool. It's one of my favorite jobs that I had, because you'd have people coming from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, different majors, like people who like they'd be talking about things like you wouldn't necessarily know about, but it was a really good way to connect with people and build those connections in a relatively short amount of time too, because the sessions were either 30 minutes long or an hour long. So it's like, you have to kind of do some work to make a connection to be able to help somebody with their writing in that short amount of time. And through that, I met like a lot of people. I used to have regular people, regular clients who would come back, or people who would refer me to other people and say, oh, my friend said you're really good at this. So it'd be really good, just to kind of connect with people and get to know people I wouldn't have known otherwise. Like, they were just students at UMBC really, but through working with them with their writing and sharing ideas and being like, oh, that's interesting and things like that. And even just reassuring people. That's something that I think about a lot when I said earlier that, anybody can be a writer. That's very true. But a lot of people, they let an earlier experience, and it's not, their fault that this happened to them, but they'll have a teacher say in like third grade and say, oh, you can't write. And then they carry that through their lives, and they're like 20, 21, 30, and they're like, I can't write. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, you can write. Like, you can definitely write. So even that, just being someone who could encourage people, even when I wasn't writing, I was still using writing as a way to connect with other people, which is really cool. Okay, so in 2016, I interned at City Paper, Baltimore City Paper, which sadly is no longer around, but it was a really good paper. So I was an editorial intern there. So a lot of the job revolved around, making edits to things and fact checking things, and calling people to confirm details that they put in the story. So that's a really cool thing too with like fact checking. I know there's a lot of like stuff about fake news and things like that out there. When we were at City Paper, like you would take an article and every single thing that was being like claimed to be a fact, you would underline it and then you'd have to confirm it. So it's not like people were just like putting lies in papers. Like it was like we confirmed every single thing. So just know that like, there are definitely like rigorous fact checking methods at reputable newspapers. And some papers just aren't reputable newspapers. So that's just what it is. But so I wrote this piece in 2016 about systemic police violence about Black people. I think I was like 19 when I wrote this, which is really cool. Yeah, like I this was after I'd written one of the pieces, the UMBC pieces that I had shown. So, it definitely did serve as a launching point. But to be able to share this with an even wider amount of people is really cool. There's one thing, writing for UMBC, which is really cool, but that's, kind of confined to the campus community and then people they know, I guess. But when you're writing for like a city paper, which is like the public, like you're really just writing for people. That was really cool to be able to just get my voice out there and talk about how this is a problem and how this affects people. One thing that I really like about, being or writing or being an active person who writes about these types of issues is that it gives like a sense of credibility. So unfortunately, like a lot of people, they don't really believe what you say until you can write about it, that type of thing. Like they're more likely to believe someone who can write well or whatever. But, being able to write about this and put these thoughts down clearly, I think maybe opens some people's eyes. Definitely like heard from a lot of people, which is cool in my personal life. We're like, oh, like I'm glad you wrote that and things like that. So that was really good. And it was my first piece published outside of UMBC. So that was really nice going into my junior year. Okay, so and then part of, the internship, we had to write 2 features, which are like, longer pieces. Like I think ours were like 1,200 words or something like that. And we had to pitch them too, which was really cool because we had to like, figure out what we wanted to write about, and then write it. So that was a different experience, but it, it's something that I had done a little bit with the UMBC blog. So this was one of the 2 features that I wrote. So it was about the difference between diversity and inclusivity. So I'd written about, there was an incident at like College Park at the time with like some racist stuff. It's this actual, like in this little picture, they have the message that the person wrote. It was like an email. It was like all bleeped out, stuff like that. And then at UMBC, it was a similar issue where there was a kid with like a facial mask on. He was like, it was a black mask. He was like, oh, I'm finally black. And it was all over like Yik Yak and all this other stuff. It was wild. So I was saying, well, these schools talk about how diverse they are, especially UMBC. And I was like, what are we really doing to make sure that people feel included? It could be diverse without being inclusive. And that's the part that I wanted to kind of spread to people, which is cool. And also, again, like a kind of a controversial message, but I definitely believed it. Like, I wasn't like just saying this just to be like, oh, that might be cool to talk about. I lived this. So I was like, hey, we need to do better. So I ended up interviewing Trey Huff, which is cool. I went to high school with him and everything. He went to College Park. So that was a good way to kind of reconnect with him and say, how are you doing? Number one, but then like see that this is kind of like a universal thing. So that was pretty cool. Proud of that feature to this day still. Most proud of this feature though, because this was about the work that I did with the Triumph City Connection, which is a student organization that I co-founded after LeaderSHAPE. So that was part of LeaderSHAPE, like making a project pretty much. And so it was myself and another member participated in LeaderSHAPE, and we started the Triumph City Connection, which is really cool. And this one, like in particular, when I got the idea to write about it, I was so excited because I was kind of struggling. Like the first one came quick, and the second one, I was like, I really don't know what the second feature is going to be. And then it hit me. I was like, oh, we should talk about, the student organization that we're running. So this is really cool. A lot of people at UMBC read it, which was nice because it was, obviously mentioned in the title. So people at UMBC read it, people outside of UMBC read it. I ended up getting a job from this article because Danielle Staten, who worked at the Fund for Educational Excellence, was working on like a college readiness website for high schoolers. So she had contacted me after this, and we just did it. Or she contacted, I think Ramsey's after this. One of us. She contacted us, and then I ended up, being an ambassador for that. So it was cool. Like, and that's like another way that this can, I obviously didn't write it with the idea like I'm gonna get a job off of this, but it worked because she recognized that I was definitely like authentic about it, and that's pretty much the biggest main idea of this was to do community work in a way that's not just like exploitative. A lot of times people just jump into communities and they start changing stuff, and they don't really consult people in other communities, and that's not. They do it in the name of just doing good work. And it's not really good work if it's, not including the opinions and values of people in the neighborhood. So yeah, that was a really cool one. This is probably like, to this day, probably my favorite thing that I wrote, I think. It was really, like, I feel like everything just kind of worked out with that one. Okay, so this was after UMBC, right? So I graduated. So this was actually this year. So I was part of the Baltimore Core Fellowship. So Baltimore Core is another nonprofit in the area, and they have a fellowship where they pretty much put, youngish people. You don't have to be young. I guess they put people in different positions around the city, right? And kind of get them involved. It's kind of like a pipeline to that type of work. A lot of work. There's a lot of work in nonprofits. Like I was in city government because I was at the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, but after COVID hit, a lot of us we were all home and everything. We were kind of wondering like what could we do to to help. It was just like a really weird time where people didn't know what was going on, and there was just like a lot of time to kind of reflect on what's the next step. So some of the fellows came up with this initiative called Stories to Support, which was highlighting people doing really great community work during the pandemic. Which was cool. So we pretty much, reached out to people who were doing this work, interviewed them, wrote articles about them, that type of thing. So I did this one on Arts and Learning Snacks, which is a really cool program that gives free art kits to children and their families that they can use regardless of whether they have internet access or not. So that's really important because everybody doesn't have internet. And they still need to be engaged in some way. So I interviewed people at Young Audiences who worked on the project, which is really cool because of something that I'll mention later. Again, Baltimore Core, so part of the fellowship. So I wrote this piece for them about just COVID and everything and dealing with that. So we have program managers, and I always told them, like, I like writing, and I definitely want to write something for you all, but I don't really know what I'm going to write. And he was like, okay, just let me know. So once everything started happening, I was like, let me write this, because I think it's important, speaking from the connection lens again, during COVID and everything, everybody was so, distant, like physically distant, but then also in a way, like just distant in other ways as well, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, we were physically apart. A lot of people you just don't know how everybody's feeling, because everybody's living through it differently. So people were losing jobs, some people weren't. Some people were completely fine. Like some people, this is like the best time of their lives, and other people, this is the worst time of their lives. So, I was just kind of trying to share my perspective and sharing everything. And that was pretty much like the main point, that everybody's going through this differently, and that it's shown how connected we all are. You know what I'm saying? Like this pandemic has affected everybody on like a global scale, because our lives are so intertwined. That's the biggest point. And since our lives are so intertwined, that we need to be in connection with each other in other ways. So that's why I wrote this, pretty much. Just kind of, get those thoughts out there, which is cool. Definitely heard from some people about it, and we're like, oh, that's how I was feeling too. So that's good, because you have these thoughts in your mind, and other people do too. But you never know that you have the same, thoughts that other people are having. You just never know. Okay, this poem. So my friend, Jasmine, let me know that this place was accepting these, poems and stuff like that. So I wrote this poem for this zine, and, it was really cool. We were able to kind of like, they were pairing, writers with artists and stuff like that. And it was a really good experience. Like, I didn't write this. So I wrote this poem, right? This is like graphic design. Like, this is really cool. So the artist's name, Charles Mason III. Yeah, he made this like graphic design of the poem I wrote. And I don't even really write poetry like that, but it was like a really good experience to kind of connect with him. And then we also did a reading, and the reading was really nice. People came through, and yeah, it was just good. It was good to be able to like read your work, because imagine like this poem and like all other types of writing start off as just like ideas in your head, and to be able to kind of make it real. So it's like in a physical book now, and then I'm reading it to actual people, and people are reacting to it. Like that was a really cool moment. To actually have my work somewhere like that. Okay, so this is like the strategy section, just stuff that I've learned. Writing authentically. So, in the examples that I gave, everything that I wrote about was stuff that I cared about. Like, I wasn't writing about things, because they were popular, because I thought people would read them, or I was writing like in spite of the fact that, some people were probably gonna get upset about it, but it was true to me. So I just wrote it. So that's the thing. If you want to like connect with people through writing, focus on what's important to you, because then, that'll show you the people, like when they read it and everything like that and they respond to it, it'll be an authentic connection, because it's like you wrote your truth and it resonated with them, and that's their truth too. And y'all can be friends or whatever afterwards. Reviewing or editing other people's work as well. So that's a really big thing. Sometimes, like if you have people, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like in a tutor sense, like I was doing, but even if you have a friend who likes to write and you like to write, just be like, you should read this or you should read that, and then have a conversation about it. I think that's really good. It helps you kind of see your work differently when other people have questions about it, or things like that. And it also helps you become a better writer when you're looking at other people's work, like, because you have to understand things about writing to even give them advice. The third step is to not let perfectionism get in the way of writing, which is something I'm still working on, but I just wanted to put it out there, for everybody, because a lot of times, like, especially with writing, when people like say that people write well, it's because a lot of times people like agonize over like, should I put this comma there? Should I use this word instead of that word? But I feel like a lot of times, like, your writing is really good. It's better than you think, and it's also going to connect with people. Like, there's people out there who could use your writing. So if you're the type of person who like, really, really wants to help other people and stuff like that, just keep that in mind. I think that's a really good way to think about it. Share your work with other people for sure. So like every single piece that I showed you, I've shared with other people. So I could have kept those ideas for myself, kept them in my head, and they still would have been like good ideas, but I wouldn't have met all these people. I wouldn't have had that job. I wouldn't have, there's a lot of stuff that wouldn't have happened, if I just kept them in. So just making sure that you share your work with other people when you write it. And then collaborating with other people on our writing project. So like stories of support that I did. And I'm also working on something new with my friend, Matt, one of my best friends. He does like origami art. So we're going to have a project soon. Like he's going to make some art and I'm going to write some stuff. And it's going to be good. But, you know, that's a really good way to kind of just connect with people. Just like, oh, if you make art, then, you know, let me write for you or something like that. And that's really cool. Okay, so this is the mentorship section. Yeah, we're going to do the same type of thing, get into the experiences that I've had with mentorship and then, yeah, strategies as well. So Bloomberg Arts internship, this is my first job after graduating from UMBC. This is my favorite job ever. Like, no, you know, I've had a lot of really good jobs, but this is my favorite job. Like, I felt like I was definitely living my purpose when I was doing this job. So it's a summer job / college readiness program. So pretty much the structure of it is Monday through Wednesday, the youth go to their jobs. So they're placed at like different arts organizations in the city. And all these kids are artists. You know, they do photography, they do graphic design, they do all types of stuff, music. So they go to, you know, to their work site, and then they come to us in the later part of the week, and we do, you know, professional development, college readiness. We take them on trips, different places. It was really a great time. I had a really good time doing this. You know, this is us in Graffiti Alley after we took a tour of Station North. But it was just really rewarding to be a part of people's journey like that. Like, you know, these young people are super talented, and a lot of times people don't really understand, I think, the value that, you know, young people from Baltimore have. So it was really good to be able to be like, you know, this is what you have to say about them. This is what I have to say. They're wonderful. They, you know, this person does this and that. And even to this day, like I'm still in touch with them. You know, this was like 2018 when I did this, but you know, still, you know, talk to them, see what's going on, see how college is going and stuff like that. So it's good. So we're connected for life, really. I mean, like, you know, just because of, you know, the work that we did that summer. So yeah, and it's run by young audiences, which is, I'm actually working there now, doing some grant stuff, but it's a nonprofit that provides arts education to youth in Maryland. So, you know, that kind of connects to some of the writing stuff too. Like what I was saying with stories to support. I had known people at young audiences because I had worked at Bloomberg Arts Internship. So it's all kind of like intertwined. That's what I really like. Like all the stuff in my life, I feel like I'm really, you know, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and everything kind of keeps on. Like I keep on running into similar people and the same people sometimes. Okay, so yeah, this is our group, like one of our group sessions. We used to do like writing sessions too, which is cool. This is Miss Beth, and this is my group, all my young people. Yeah, it was really fun. So in my second year with Bloomberg Arts Internship, I was the lead college mentor, which means that I worked with students and my fellow mentors. So it's kind of like mentoring everybody, like the other mentors, the students, everybody, just making sure everything went well, which is really cool. Like I really liked that role because I was in it. Like I was like kind of like a player and a coach at the same time. Like I was doing both. And it was really good because a lot of the things, like I know a lot of my experience is focused on youth mentorship, but it's the same thing with adults. Like you really just have to be, you know, yourself and connect with them on a genuine level. And it was the same type of success that I had, I think, with both my fellow mentors and students that we had. So yeah, it was a really great experience. Really love Bloomberg Arts. It's kind of hurt. I couldn't do it last year or this past year because I was doing youth works, but yeah, it was a really good experience, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of it. This is the last picture. This is like students from the first year coming back the second year. So they were coming back to kind of speak to the kids coming up in the second year. And this is like all my kids, Bella and Isis and Micaiah and Tosin and Kennedy and so all my kids. So yeah, there's no words on that slide. I just wanted to show y'all that picture. All right, so this summer I was working as a job coach for YouthWorks, which is a summer jobs program, 14 to 21-year-olds. So we were teaching students lessons about job readiness and sharing our work experiences and just general life stuff, which is interesting because this was all like over Google Meet. So like I never met any of these people in person, even my co-coach, like we never met, but it's still the same thing. Like every strategy or whatever that I used before kind of works with this. And it just shows that you don't have to be in the same physical space to mentor somebody. So this is the Charm City Connection, which is, I think, like my proudest accomplishment. So that's different from my favorite jobs. Yeah, proudest accomplishment in life. I think just co-founding this and keeping it going and everything like that. It was definitely a struggle to keep it going. And a lot of people, some people weren't as supportive of it being going and things like that. But it all worked out how it was supposed to work out. And it worked out because of, institutional support and, support from students and, my friends and things like that. And people just kind of getting into it that way through real connections. So co-founded this after LeaderSHAPE in 2015. So the purpose was to connect UMBC's members, community members to each other and to Baltimore City as a whole. We started off as a mentorship group and then we shifted to community service. So we had a mentorship program actually at Excel Academy. And then also I was doing mentorship with, a couple students from Baltimore City and things like that too. We did so much stuff with this group. We did some really important things. We raised $1,000 to buy culturally relevant books for students in Baltimore City. And we, introduced Dr. King from UMBC to Curtis Eady from the Southwest Partnership. And they ended up working together and they had a class, which was really cool. Cause I'm that's a beautiful connection. And that's something that doesn't happen if this group doesn't exist. So it definitely justified when I was talking about before, people saying, oh, why don't you just join some other existing group? I'm that wouldn't have happened if I just joined an existing group, probably, right? So I built a lot of personal and professional connections to the group. Definitely with Southwest Partnership, a lot of people in Southwest Baltimore, we did a lot of work down there, Pop Farm and Community Engagement Center and just different places like that, which is really cool. Personal connections, I met one of my best friends through the group. His name is Gabe Duran. He was actually running the group after I left. From day one, we were cool, that type of thing. This picture as well. So these are the people who are running the group now. Very proud of them. They joined their freshman year was the year that I took over running the group. And they kind of grew up through the group and they're running it. So which is really cool. So that's Brianna and Batanya and Ina. So yeah, super proud of it. It's been 5 years since the group started. So it's outlived my time and Ramsey's time at UMBC. So that's really good. So very proud of the Charm City connection. That's definitely the highlight of my UMBC career for sure. All right, and then just these strategies for connecting through mentorship. Start small if you have to. So you can start with your siblings. You don't have to do a big thing. People from school or work. If somebody starts working somewhere and you just want to just make sure they're good, just do that. The world needs more of that. People connecting authentically with other people. Be yourself. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people, I feel they have this idea of what a mentor is, some type of movie idea where you just, go out and, it's just weird. They have this preconceived notion of what mentorship is, but it really isn't that. And whoever you're mentoring, especially with youth, but, even if it's not a young person, they're going to be able to tell that you're not being yourself. So you have to be able to be yourself, be honest, be authentic. That's really important. Tailor the mentorship to the people or person you're mentoring. So definitely that's in Bloomberg Arts, all those young people had different personalities. So I couldn't, be the exact same with some people, with everybody. I had to kind of tailor myself. I had one group, the second year I did it, all of them were quiet, but they were all different types of quiet. So some were quiet because they were in a group. Some were actually quiet and shy. Some were, just I don't, stuff like that. So you have to know who you're talking to and know how you can kind of get the best out of everybody. Know who might need more time to complete some work or just different stuff like that. This last one's very important too, and I want to explain it. Pretty much you don't need to be a mentor through an existing organization. So I get why people say that because there's a lot of duplication of efforts in there. And a lot of people just start up a whole lot of programs that could, theoretically be one organization. But at the same time, it's especially in my situation, if we join an existing organization, we might not have had the same leeway to do the things that we wanted to do. And yeah, sometimes you just occupy a specific space that other people don't occupy. So there are a lot of organizations out there who do mentorship, but you might want to do something that's very specific. If you want to just mentor young women in graphic design, there might not be something that's out there like that. So you have to make it yourself, and don't be afraid of doing that route. Some people will try to discourage it, but if it makes sense to you and there's a need that you're filling, then you should definitely go ahead and do that. It's definitely really good. And then also you can kind of start with a blank slate, so you can connect with anybody you want to. A lot of things with existing organizations, you have to, kind of live with their existing partnerships. So it's we work with these people, we don't work with these people. But when you're starting from scratch, it's you work with whoever you want. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely that's my advice. If you can, mentor people, create your own organization and definitely go ahead and do that. And yeah, that's my info. That's my website. So that's where you can read. I know, like I showed like the screenshots or whatever of like the things that I've written, but if you want to read them in full, you can go there. It's my email. Definitely reach out if you have any questions. You want to talk about anything, mentorship, writing, anything like that. Ask me any questions about, how I did what I did, or just whatever. You want to shoot me something that you wrote, like that type of thing. Definitely do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation and your insights. We do have a couple extra minutes in case anybody wants to ask their questions or connect now. We obviously have Jasir's contact information. I can send that up in a follow-up email as well, but we do have a little extra time if anybody has questions or comments while we're in the Zoom room. They're coming into the chat. Yes, great job. From a personal, it's not so much a question, but a comment. I loved your framing of writing as mentorship. I never really thought about it like that. My brother is an undergrad now, and I am constantly editing his papers, and I think of it more so as a copy editor, like lens in my mind, but it's totally right. Like seeing it as a form of mentorship and B, a form of connection, because in reading his work, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that XYZ thing about you. And it's really a nice reframe in my mind, and I'm taking that away from this class. So thank you for that perspective. I definitely appreciate that.
I have a quick question. In terms of mentorship, I have like a role as a mentor, more specifically as a coach, but if you have any guidance or tips on how to pursue that virtually, I would really appreciate that, just because I know part of this is the human interaction, right? Like being in a physical space and catching things that you see about your students or like of your athletes, and you pick up on stuff. But when you're on the computer, it's like, how do I pick up on those small things that that people present? So I was wondering if you had any advice or guidance about that.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Definitely, like with youth works, because it was all virtual. Like when I was doing Bloomberg Arts, you would see people, you would know who's friends with who and stuff like that. I think a lot of the times just setting up like one-on-one conversations, that kind of helped with that. So just kind of getting to know people, and sometimes you figure stuff out. Like we had two people in youth works who were like, they lived up the street from each other, and we just kind of figured that out. Like, oh, you live up the street from them, that's really cool. So yeah, just kind of trying to take those one-on-one moments if you can, where people feel more comfortable sharing things than they would, in a larger group. Because we had a few students like that too this summer. Like the nature of like Zoom and stuff like that, it makes some people you wouldn't even really get what their personality is, because they're just like, this is Zoom, like I'm not going to say anything. But if you can kind of get them, one-on-one, send an email, whatever they feel comfortable with, just as much, I think, one-on-one interaction as possible. That's what I try to do.
Cool, thank you.
That is excellent advice, and something I think we can take out of mentorship and into just personal interactions, right? Like now we all have Zoom happy hours and birthday parties and things that we have to do, right? But I also think that a little bit of that one-on-one connection is lost in these COVID times. So really creating the space and seeking that out is great. Another piece of great advice that I will walk away from this class with. So being conscious of everybody's time, I will wrap up our session. Thank you again so much. Round of Zoom applause for Jasir and his presentation on building connections through writing and mentorship. I will share your website in my follow-up email, as well as Jasir's contact information, so you can connect after class. We will be continuing the class series. Collegetown will be continuing this class series. If you are interested in hosting one yourself, you are welcome to. It's kind of a rolling application process. Hopefully Jasir can speak to the fact that it's an easy application. It's really just like come up with a title and a description, and we set up everything on the back end. So we welcome the continued skill sharing and connection throughout the rest of the fall semester and into the spring as well. So with that, I will bid you all farewell and wish you a happy rest of your Thursday, happy Friday, Junior, all that jazz. Have a great weekend. We're almost
Thank you
there.
for coming.
Thank you.
Good seeing y'all.
Thank you.